Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Josh. This is Talking Smarks, and we're going to go ahead and dive right into it. We have gone through the first week of 2024. It's already in the books of the wrestling industry. We are still dealing with some of the fallout from the ending of last year, specifically in AEW, so we'll go ahead and bring you some of those highlights. On December 30th, in MJF's hometown of Long Island, we had the At World's End pay-per-view. It finally happened. The Devil was finally dethroned. Samoa Joe, your new AEW World Champion. At the end of the show, we also finally got the reveal of the Devil himself. It turned out that the Devil was none other than MJF's supposed best friend. His partner in Better Than You, baby, Adam Cole. It had been teased for months. There were several prime suspects for a while. It seemed like it could have even been Samoa Joe himself. It could have been Wardlow. We'll get back to that. It could have been Swerve Strickland. They really did a good job of trying to kind of throw you curveballs in terms of who the Devil could have been. But also, the Devil is in the details. We figured out, with hindsight, we now know that they teased that it was Adam Cole months ago. People pulled up a shot from an episode of Dynamite where inside of Adam Cole's locker was the Devil mask. AEW rewarded those who were paying attention. And now we're going to see what ends up happening with the storyline. It's still playing out on AEW television, which leads me to speculate. Obviously, I don't know anything. I don't know anything about wrestling contracts. I'm not Dave Meltzer. I'm not Brian Alvarez. I'm not Nick Houseman. I'm not Sean Ross Sapp. But my speculation here is, if he's not going to come back, why continue the storyline? Why keep bringing him up on AEW television? This is a stark contrast to what happened with Andrade El Idolo. It was confirmed by Tony Khan in the media scrum after At World's End came to its conclusion that Andrade El Idolo has departed from AEW. His match with Miro at World's End, that was a pretty definitive conclusion. He got defeated by Miro. Obviously had the storyline in there with Miro's wife CJ Perry as his manager. That was pretty much said and done. We know Andrade's done. As to what comes next for him, nobody knows. The speculation is that he is going to return to WWE, especially now with Triple H in charge. Triple H did a really good job booking him during the NXT days. He obviously had those he has classic matches. The one with Johnny Gargano, that was still honestly one of the best pro wrestling matches of the last 10 years, if you ask me. That was just such an utter classic. Getting to watch that live on the WWE network at that time, keep in mind, this was way before the Peacock deal. But still, just, I wish him all the best in whatever comes next. But also, this year is going to be quite a bit of a shakeup year, not just for AEW, but for WWE. A lot of people's contracts are up. I fully expect there to be some shakeups. People going to AEW, people going back to WWE. But that's the joy of having more than one nationally televised wrestling promotion. Wrestlers have options. Some people tried to make it work in WWE, it didn't work, and they're doing incredibly well in AEW. For other people, it may be the other way around. Perhaps they weren't being utilized, or perhaps just something went wrong in their AEW run, and they're going to try their luck in WWE. They have options now, which is good. Competition is always good in the wrestling industry. So I am fully expecting talent to jump ship from one to another. It's like the Monday Night Wars all over again, but that's okay. It keeps us intrigued. It keeps us on the edge of our seats, and at the end of the day, if it means that there are more eyes on the wrestling industry, that's just best for business, taking a page from Triple H right there. But in terms of debuts, we already got two big ones in AEW. AEW kicked off with a bang to start off the year. It had been speculated in the Wrestling Observer and through other sources that AEW was kind of going back to its roots in terms of having a more sports-based presentation, making everything feel a little bit more legitimate, trying to, dial down on maybe some of the more sports entertaining aspects of it, and you can definitely tell during this first episode of Dynamite of the Year that they were really doing that. You had a lot of the video packages introducing talent and kind of like getting glimpses of their training and such, and just having more, I guess you could say, realistic gimmicks overall. Now, don't get me wrong, you still have your freaky, your supernatural, you still got the House of Black in there, you still got Julia Hart, you still got Abaddon, you still got some of the more spooky and, more fantastical elements in there, but overall they're just really kind of focusing more on like the athleticism and what these folks can do in the ring. So it's kind of going back to like the origin of AEW, so we'll see how that turns out for them. But we had, like I said, 2 major debuts. Mariah May has been showing up on AEW TV for quite some time. Her American Wrestling debut had been teased for some time now. She was basically Toni Storm's lackey, always following her around, and they are teasing a program between her and Toni Storm down in the future. Mariah May kept asking for Toni Storm to show up to watch her American Wrestling debut match, and Toni Storm was always busy. She was always doing anything else. Mariah May had her debut. Renee Paquette goes into the ring, starts to cut a promo, and just basically talking about how she's happy she's in AEW, your typical sort of babyface promo, only to be upstaged, or let me backtrack here, taking a dig at New Jersey. So she's kind of playing kind of a tweener character because she has kind of a babyface thing going on, but also at the same time just like just taking pot shots at New Jersey. This brings out the Jersey Girl herself, former Impact Knockouts world champion, 3-time I should say, Deonna Purrazzo. In her home state, they're in New Jersey. They're in the Prudential Center, the Rock as other people call it. She comes in, tells Mariah that she has a message to Toni Storm to let her know that she is coming. Doesn't matter where she goes, doesn't matter where she hides, she's coming for her. And Deonna officially announces that she has signed to All Elite Wrestling. I think this is going to be a great signing for them. Deonna brings some legitimate credibility as an in-ring worker and as a talent. She brings that credibility, and I believe she can have some amazing matches with many of the women on the roster. Let's not forget, she is also best friends with the face of the women's division herself, Dr. Britt Baker, DMD. So I'm fully expecting a program between those two at some point. As Deonna is speaking, Mariah May goes, "I'm not the messenger, tell her yourself," says a word I can't say on air, slaps Deonna. Deonna responds by just kicking Mariah May just right out of the ring. Taz, oh my lord, I love his commentary, just blurts it out, just, "You don't slap a Jersey girl in Jersey." I was dying watching this live. It was amazing. And there's still more to come. It looks like Tony Khan is bringing in the heavy equipment to really kind of elevate the women's division and take it to an even higher level still. We already have some top-notch talent in there. We have the return of Serena Deeb, which is imminent. You have Toni Storm in there. We have Jamie Hayter, who sooner or later is going to be making her return. We have Britt Baker. We have Thunder Rosa back. We're seeing other talent get more TV time. Julia Hart doing incredible in her run right now as the TBS champion. We're seeing Abaddon get more TV time, which is always awesome. I was privileged to be able to see Abaddon have a match on AEW Dark the first time that AEW came to Denver. It was a dark match against Hikaru Shida. Awesome match. Big fan of the gimmick. I love it. It's going to be incredible. But also, the big rumored signing, according to the Wrestling Observer, is that Mercedes Moné, yes, the former Sasha Banks in WWE, is expected to debut on AEW television, quote unquote, soon after talks between herself and WWE broke down. There is speculation as to why the talks broke down. No one knows for sure. Like I previously stated, I'm no journalist. I'm just a guy with a podcast. I don't have any sort of inside sources here. Could have been money, could have been creative direction, But by all accounts, it looks like we are expected to see Mercedes make her way onto AEW programming soon. This is also going to be a powerhouse move. Mercedes brings in mainstream eyes. Obviously, there are the people who know her in her previous run as Sasha Banks in WWE. She's also been making waves as Casca Reeves in The Mandalorian. She has mainstream appeal, which could help bring more eyes onto AEW's product. And also, too, given how she left WWE when she herself and now Trinity, the former Naomi, walked out of WWE, if I'm Tony Khan, I better be getting somebody, if not Tony Khan himself, somebody to help really book and push that women's division. Because as we've seen, Mercedes is not afraid to be vocal. She is not afraid to leave either. So if Tony Khan can seal the deal and really get this women's divisions going, the sky really is the limit for them. Honestly, I would be okay too if we saw, for example, more crossovers between the AEW women's division and the Knockouts division in Impact. The women's division in Impact is absolutely solid. It could be an incredible time. Plus, also opens the door possibly to see, Trinity possibly going in there. There are rumors and speculation, which there seems to be plenty of a lot of the time in this business, that she could be making her way back to WWE. No one knows for sure. We're just going to have to sit around and find out. But on top of having the first episode of Dynamite of 2024, we also had Wrestle Kingdom, which had some notable AEW talent showing up. Obviously, over the last few years, we've seen an incredible partnership, which has led to some incredible matches between talent in AEW and New Japan Pro Wrestling. Two of the big highlights involving AEW stars. We had the inaugural three-way match for the IWGP Global Heavyweight Championship. David Finlay defeated Jon Moxley and Will Ospreay in just awesome, honestly, an incredible match. Keep in mind, yes, Jon Moxley is an AEW talent. He works dates in New Japan. Will Ospreay is finishing up his deal with New Japan, and he has signed with AEW. And I fully expect there to be more matches between AEW and New Japan Pro Wrestling talent at the Tokyo Dome. But otherwise, it was an incredible match. We finally got the dream rematch between Kazuchika Okada and Bryan Danielson. We had their first match at Forbidden Door, which was incredible, even made more so by the fact that even though Bryan Danielson legitimately, not a work, broke his arm during the match, he still managed to make Okada tap out. Such a rare occurrence, just such an incredible match. We finally got the rematch. This time, Kazuchika Okada was successful, totally setting the stage for a rubber match. They're now one apiece. Could happen at Forbidden Door, could happen at another New Japan show. We don't know just yet. This is supposed to be the last full-time year of Bryan Danielson's career, so we'll see when or where that match will happen. That doesn't mean that he's done. He just said it's the final full-time year of his career. He has speculated before in interviews that he's still going to be wrestling, more possibly training, but he's not going to be full-time anymore, which makes sense, given his age, his acumen. It's his career. He wants to end the full-time portion of his career on his own terms. After the match, both men showed respect for one another in the ring. Just, an incredible moment. But also, too, we just have to keep in mind the fact that we have a promotion that is willing to allow or promotions that are willing to work together to make these dream matches happen for the sake of the fans is just absolutely incredible. We are maybe perhaps taking it for granted now that AEW's been around for a few years now. But just remember, before 2019, before AEW came into existence, this wasn't happening. If you wanted to be on national television in the US, you had to be with WWE. Now there are options, going back to what I was talking about at the beginning of the show. If talent is in WWE and perhaps it didn't work out for them there, they can try a run in AEW. And vice versa. There could be talent in AEW that perhaps they thought they had a different idea for what they wanted to do for their careers, and for one reason or another didn't pan out. They can go try their luck in WWE. There is nothing wrong with that. Although I know that's definitely going to anger some tribal wrestling fans, because there will always be those that anytime somebody jumps ship from one company to another, they'll be like, oh, he or she, they're a traitor. How dare they leave? Even going so far as to, I ended up seeing this and I couldn't actually believe it. It happened on Twitter, because I'm not calling it X. Sorry, Elon. After CM Punk debuted or re-debuted in WWE at Survivor Series, people posting videos of themselves burning their CM Punk AEW merch and labeling him a traitor and yada yada yada. Did we forget where CM Punk spent a large chunk of his career? He was in WWE for a long time before he left, and then he had his sabbatical, and then it was almost 2 years to the day that he lasted in AEW. So yes, he has way more of a career in WWE than he ever had in AEW. AEW, in terms of CM Punk's overall career, was kind of a blip on the radar. And I will say this, I am a fan of CM Punk. Granted, it is hard to justify that at times with some of his behaviors, some of his antics. But I like his character. I like what he does in the ring. I love what he can do on a microphone. I've liked it so much for my student radio show that I do at school. I use Cult of Personality as my intro music. I'm actually bringing it back. There was a period of time that I wasn't using it. I don't know what I was thinking, but I'm bringing it back. And as Taz says, but I digress. One thing, and I will continue to make this more of a point, especially this year on this show, is I'm not part of the tribalistic, this almost faction-based fandom that comes with professional wrestling. I like watching AEW. I like watching WWE. I'll watch stuff on the indies. I'll watch also Impact, Ring of Honor, New Japan. I'm not going to be one of these tribal fans that it's like, oh, well, you can only watch this, and if you watch anything else, you're a traitor. Like, no, I'm sorry. I'm not going to do that. If y'all want to go ahead and be tribalistic about it, well, then that's on you. But I feel if you're doing that, you're missing out. Because there are so many great storylines just happening across the entire industry that so many people miss out on because they choose to only watch one company. And it really is a shame, because there's so much professional wrestling on now with, for example, like just anything that you can stream on the internet with Fight TV and Axis and just so many providers out there. There's wrestling out there literally for everyone. You want to watch a women's only league? There's Women's of Wrestling. There was that Revival. There's Stardom. There's just so much wrestling out there that I feel a lot of people do miss out on because they just have this tribalistic belief that they can only watch one company or they can only be fans of one company. And if anybody says anything else about it, they're like, ooh, well, you already know. If you're listening to this show, then more than likely it's because you are a fan of professional wrestling and you know exactly what I'm talking about. And dealing with the internet wrestling community can be such a pain. I even have to deal with it when I upload stuff onto these pages. There will always be somebody making some kind of comment. And it's up to us really to choose if we want to respond to them or not. Half the time I don't, unless it's something that's just borderline absurd. Then at that point I just have to be like, dude, just do that, whoever you are, just no, like knock it off. But that about does it here for today's episode. Feel free to follow the podcast. We are on Spotify. We are also getting episodes uploaded back onto YouTube. We have the Twitter and Instagram pages at Talking Smarks. We also do keep an eye on Dynamite, AEW Collision. Basically, if there's wrestling on, we're following it. And feel free to engage. Feel free to reply, to send a send a tweet. No, I'm not calling it X. Just feel free to engage, because that's just some of the best parts of being a fan of wrestling, is engaging with fellow fans and just hearing the conversations. But I thank you all so much for listening, and you all have a great rest of your day.